It's so easy to be average. It takes a little something to be special, doesn't it? It takes a little something special to be a great player. Did you push yourself to be great today?
There wasn't a first down. Not that much. The officiating, I'm bitterly disappointed with the officiating today. That spot, the graphic displays the unfair penalties. The one not called on us, on that Perry, clearly was being pushed before the ball got there. And the previous penalty they called on Delano Hill, the ball is uncatchable and by the receiver. See, I'm bitterly disappointed. Throw a hat, throw a stick, throw your sideline, that's a penalty.
This is the Silver Bullets Podcast on the Ozone Radio Network, your authority on all things Ohio State. Here are your hosts, Shannon, Sommers, and Chip Minnich.
Not Chip, if you have an iota of human feeling.
Buckeye Nation, welcome to another edition of the Silver Bullets Podcast on the Ozone Radio Network. I'm your host, Shannon Sommers, contributor at Hayes & Cannon, director of the Ozone Radio Network, producer of Acosta Field with Tony Gerdeman. We're going to talk some college football today, which means we have Chip Minnich on with us. Chip Minnich is a contributor at Hayes & Cannon along with Athlon Sports. Chip, how are we doing today?
Doing great, Shannon. Happy New Year.
Yes, you too. We have a new member of the family. I don't know if you've seen the news about this earlier, Chip, but we got Buckeye Sloopcast joined the Ozone Radio Network, and we have Jared here joining us. Jared, how are we doing?
Doing good. I think I'm doing okay. Listen. Let me square up with you right now. I'm used to being in charge. I'm a bit of a control freak, so to sort of sit back and let someone else drive is abnormal for me.
Yeah, it's different because when I've been guest on shows, it's kind of crazy.
Don't worry, he'll crash the car a few times.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Nothing to get too bent out of shape about.
That's my forte. So I was laughing because when I was listening to your guys' show and their last show and how you guys can't remember names and everything, that's me to a T. So you're going to fit in just nicely here.
We're okay at remembering names, pronouncing names. We're just a train wreck on trying to pronounce names. I was watching the Army All-American game, and during the Army All-American game, I heard Tommy Tagaya pronounce his own name. And by the way, it's not pronounced Tagaya. I still don't know how you pronounce it.
I don't even. I'm terrible with that too. Sometimes I get too many things in my head. I just forget. It just pushes everything out. But, all right, yeah, we're going to talk about, we'll recap a little bit, discuss the Big Ten, the perfect season of the Big Ten bowl games, 7-1. Good job, Gamecocks. Mike Weber returning, Jerome Baker declaring a prediction for the Southern Bowl, and Alex Grinch coming onto the staff. I'll let Chip go ahead and start off with his thoughts on the perfect Big Ten bowl season.
Well, anytime you can get a free bloomin' onion, I think that's a great way to start off the new year. Congratulations to the rest of the Big Ten for upholding the honor and prestige of the conference, something that our rivals to the north, that team up north, seem to miss that memo. But I think the Big Ten represented themselves as well as they possibly could. I personally, taking the Ohio State fandom, putting that to the side, just speaking for myself, I found the Michigan State victory over Washington State in the Holiday Bowl probably the most impressive game of them all. Maybe you guys disagree, but I thought that was probably the most impressive bowl victory for the Big Ten. But what a tremendous way to end 2017 and go into 2018 with a lot of optimism. I think that the Big Ten represented themselves tremendously well, going 7-1 in the bowl season.
Which, unlike our Disney-owned friends over at ESPN, does in fact mean something.
No, it doesn't.
Go out on a limb. I'm gonna go out on a limb. Call me crazy. You can call me crazy if you want to call me crazy. I think it matters. I think it does in fact matter when you can go 7-1 in the bowl season. I maybe, I don't know, lock me up, throw away the key. I don't know. I'm a crazy man. I think it matters.
But it only matters if it's the SEC, and ESPN needs them in order to make the SEC successful. So, we're not here to make ESPN successful and Disney. They've got enough. So, I mean, with them buying Fox Sport, the local Fox Sport affiliates now, kind of makes you sick. I wonder how that's going to work out, but that's something for a different day.
Actually, let me, sorry to correct you.
Oh, no.
The Fox affiliates are not purchased by Disney. The Fox broadcast is still going to be a part of an independent network to be created later, as is the share in the Big Ten network and the Fox Sports channels. The Fox affiliates, the Fox broadcast, the Fox Sports, Fox News, and Big Ten networks are remaining Disney free.
Okay, I thought like the Fox Sports, like Fox Sports Ohio and stuff like that, those guys were going to become ESPN stations.
Oh, yeah, no. I apologize.
I probably misspoke when, yeah.
The Fox regionals are being purchased by Disney.
Which, it's Fox Sports Ohio, because there's two of them, but the one that was Sports Time Ohio that became Fox Sports Ohio, and I don't know why they didn't merge the two together, but I just wonder how that's going to affect Major League Baseball, and everybody likes watching the Indians that are,
Major League what now?
Baseball. We're going to have to learn him something, Chip.
Hey, I'm more of the Indians fan, like after the trading deadline kind of a thing, like 162 games. It's kind of difficult to keep my attention for that long. I'm, like as of like when I start to hear the words like the pennant race, and that's kind of like circa like July, August, that's when I kind of start to take it a little bit more seriously. But
hey, we're less than 90 days away from the home opener for the Indians. So, and I know we have a lot of fans that listen to, or a lot of listeners that listen or follow, that are fans of the Cincinnati Reds. I will learn how to speak, but not on a Monday.
All right.
So Jared, did you have anything else about the Big Ten bowl games?
No, I agree. I think Michigan State game was, if not anything else, I think the most fun game to have watched. I enjoyed it. The Ohio State game, as much as you love to see Ohio State as the Big Ten champions defeat USC, the Pac-12 champions, and two real historic teams, a lot of historic laundry on the field. It's great. It's absolutely great. But the actual product, the game itself, was a real snooze fest in the second half. So from an entertainment quality standpoint, I think I'll go with the Michigan State game as well.
Yeah,
Wisconsin was fun.
Yeah,
who would have thought that Wisconsin not only would have outplayed Miami? Okay, I saw that one coming, but actually outswaggered them. I still can't get the video in my mind of the two guys celebrating and one of them ripping the chain off of the other one.
Yeah.
Wisconsin,
I was totally impressed by that. Yeah, I actually, I believe I picked Miami to win that game just because Alex Hornibrook during the season was having interception issues, which, man, did he take a step up and look really, really good as a quarterback for Wisconsin in that game. And if he plays next season like that, the West is definitely going to be theirs to own, and he's going to put himself into that conversation to be in the first-round draft pick, like I predicted in the preseason. So we'll see how that works out with Hornibrook. I'm particular just based on a simple fact of looking at the score of the Ohio State-Penn State game. They only scored 7 points off a, botched, or not botched, but a a drop punt or field goal or kickoff or whatever. And that's the only reason that they got into the end zone, because it was like, first and 15 after that, or first, they were on the 15. So, I mean,
100% of the touchdowns scored in that game were off of turnovers by both teams.
And that's the crazy part, is just even Ohio State's, when I thought Ohio State was going to be a lot more efficient offensively, but Penn State's defense really, USC's defense kind of stepped up. And I don't know if it was just the microcosm of that's the way that JT was, because everybody was wanting JT out and couldn't move the ball, blah, blah, blah. But bottom line, JT's one of the best players to play the game for Ohio State under center. And, I mean, as far as the Michigan game, you knew that was kind of going to happen, especially when I keep telling Michigan fans, and nobody wants to listen to me, that number one.
Why are you talking to Michigan fans?
It's help the the indigent or whatever, special needs. You got to help them, but
fair enough.
It's one of those ones where in the middle of the third quarter, late third quarter, that's when Michigan starts falling apart. They don't have the depth, and they haven't been developing the depth behind the starters, that the starters are playing every single play and are exhausted, and they start making mistakes. And it's just their defense can't stop anybody in the fourth quarter. The Wisconsin game, that was evident. The Ohio State game, that was evident. South Carolina game, that was evident. 2016 against Ohio State with a veteran defense, the number one defense in the country. You could tell when they're standing with their hands on their hips. Michigan fans are like, well, look, the offense, they're letting the defense stay on the field. Well, if you look at the 2016 game, Ohio State, it was 3 and out how many times? Michigan was on the field offensively a lot more. Yeah, I don't remember the exact numbers, but the South Carolina game, they held the ball almost 10 more minutes than South Carolina. And you're going to tell me that the defense couldn't stop anybody in the fourth quarter because they're exhausted and they played 10 less minutes? That's one of those ones. It is what it is. And, Michigan, you're not going to be anywhere until you start developing the depth underneath of what you have. And you might have a rotation on the defensive line with Gary and Hurst and whoever else, and your second-tier guys aren't like what Ohio State has. And when you rotating guys, and that's why you got to keep them starters in, because you're not developing the younger guys, you're taking a big step down, and that's what's hurting you guys.
Well, sure. And if you look at last year, you had a situation in which Ohio State brought back basically nobody. They was the official number 3 returning starters during the 2016 season. And Michigan had something like, was it 45 seniors on that team? A crazy number.
It was in the 40s, yeah.
Yeah, some sort of crazy number like that. If that was it. That was Michigan's opportunity to finally beat Ohio State. And they didn't do it. Now, you move forward to 2017, and the roles are reversed. You have the roles reversed. You have Ohio State with a lot of veterans on the team, and Michigan, who had just lost all 85 seniors from the previous team, all of a sudden they have this young team. And that was the excuse all year for Michigan. Well, we didn't return anybody and blah, 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 blah. Well, wait, once we get this team with some experience, it'll be fine. But where was that talk a year ago when Ohio State returned 3?
Made it to the playoffs.
And Michigan brought back everybody. And the excuse was, well, yeah, Ohio State only returned 3, but they rotate so much. Yeah.
That's it right
That's
there.
Not an accident.
Right, exactly. Chip, you got anything on that?
Rotation is a part of the strategy.
No, I think you guys hit it right on the head. If anything, Shannon, you mentioned at the very beginning when you were doing the introduction, reminding everyone that I contribute to Athlon Sports. It's one of the things that is so perplexing is Athlon Sports had their ridiculously early predictions or, 2018 rankings, and they had Michigan ranked number 7. And that's completely beyond any comprehension for me looking at the 2018 schedule for Michigan. Say what you will about coming back. You referenced Rashawn Gary and Hurst and And say what you will about possibly having Shea Patterson at quarterback. And when you look at 2018 schedule, I don't see how anybody could, if they go 8-5 again, that would be surprising to me, because I think that schedule that they have coming up is going to be brutal.
It is. And that's the thing that kills me is before this season started, I was telling everybody that, look, Michigan is going to be going 8-4 this year. Why am I saying that Michigan's going to go 8-4 during the regular season? They had a neutral game against Florida, who we thought was going to be, pretty decent. You had a road game at Camp Randall. You had to play Ohio State, and you had to play Penn State in Beaver Stadium. Michigan hasn't beat a ranked road opponent since 2006, I believe, was Notre Dame. They didn't end up beating it, until Purdue won their bowl game, but any team that they played, that when they played them had a winning record, they lost to. And magically they're going to jump up to be the, fifth team in the country or whatever. I just don't buy it. And to sit there and say, all right, well, we had our third quarterback last year and we went 8-4 or 8-5. And, that was a pretty good season. No,
Cardell Jones doesn't care.
Yeah, exactly. You're sitting there telling Ohio State fans, well, we're down to our third string quarterback. All we kept hearing was, well, if Wilton Spate in the 2016 game was healthy, Michigan would have won. Well, that obviously isn't true. If John O'Corn, well, he, look what he did.
Freak on a leash, John O'Corn.
Yeah,
as we call him on the Sloopcast.
If Brandon Peters wasn't hurt for the Ohio State game, but then look at the South Carolina game, and what did you get? Oh, well, when we get Shea Patterson, look, your offensive line is horrific. It's trash. You have a front seven, or the defensive line of an Ohio State and a Penn State, you're going to get killed. Michigan State's defensive line was pretty good, and they took it to you guys. Oh, that's right, it was raining. Sorry, forgot Michigan State didn't play in the rain that day. But it's so many excuses that Michigan fans have. It's not even funny. But speaking of Michigan fans and a kid from Michigan, Mike Weber, as you guys said on your show, had that the 3-word tweet, the cryptic 3-word tweet. One more season.
As far as 3-word tweet goes, I feel like it was pretty clear.
Well,
but it was a 3-word tweet.
Well, yeah. I definitely agree. And I love the fact that, number one, you look at Mike Weber, kid from Cass in Detroit, spurned Ohio State and chose Michigan at the last minute. Then all of a sudden, Michigan, I forget who they grabbed as their running back. I think it was Higdon. And because they told Mike Weber, well, you're the only running back that we're going after. I think it was Higdon who signed, and then Weber got mad, so he chose Ohio State and signed with Ohio State. And then the running back coach ran off to the NFL. And all of a sudden, Harbaugh sends out that tweet, that BS tweet. But here he's going to come back with J.K.
And for
Dobbins.
what it's worth, Ohio State has not signed anyone out of Cass Tech since.
Yeah, you got to give Harbaugh some kind of credit, but no, because Michael Jordan. No, was Michael Jordan from Cass or?
No.
Okay.
He's not.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if he had anybody from, and I know that coach was saying, all this bad stuff about Ohio State, but whatever. You look at Damon Webb, he's going to be in the NFL. Weber's going to be in the NFL. He's going to be, coming back with J.K. Dobbins and what was it? Kyle Morgan, No Huddle Scouts wrote a piece, and he was calling the unicorn formation with J.K. and Weber in the backfield at the same time. We've seen it with the USC. Imagine that this next season, having those two in the backfield at the same time and having somebody with the speed for the H-back with McCall or something like that. So, offensively, this team's going to look really good next year. What are your thoughts, Chip?
Well, I'm hoping personally that with Kevin Wilson having a history of having multiple running backs gaining 1,000 yards, that Ohio State fans will get that opportunity next year to see that with with Dobbins and Weber. Regardless of whether they're playing in the backfield at the same time, the idea of platooning backs, I think, Tony Gerdeman wrote about it on the Ozone. That's kind of my hope. Now, it remains to be seen, but I think that's, kind of what I'm hoping with Mike Weber coming back. And maybe, we don't know, maybe if that conversation has been had behind the scenes. But that's kind of what I'm hoping with Mike Weber, that he considered what maybe his NFL draft stock, what it was. And he thought, with another year, even with, sharing the position with J.K. Dobbins, that it was better to come back. So I'm very optimistic for 2018 for Mike Weber to have another productive season. And hopefully, like Tony said in his article, hopefully go through the season healthy, unlike the previous seasons at Ohio State.
Well, I know in the last edition of Acosta Field, which by the time this airs will be the second to last edition, but when it was Tom, me, and Tony on there, and we all predicted that Weber was going to go into the NFL, and Tony made a joke, well, this means he's going to stay, so obviously he was listening to the show and he's staying. So.
And for what it's worth, splitting carries is not a bad thing at the running back position as far as the NFL goes. Like if you're an NFL scout, or if you're a player trying to go into the NFL, if you're a wide receiver, getting a limited opportunity to catch the ball can hurt your draft stock. At running back, not so much. In fact, because the running back position is what it is, and running backs have a limited number of carries in their body no matter what the level, the fact that you're splitting carries can often be seen as a benefit, that you'll be coming into the NFL with fresh legs and, for lack of a better phrase, a lot of hits left in your body.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely going to be something great for Ohio State and a big advantage. And that Weber's going to be working his tail off during the offseason, and so is Dobbins, and those two are close, and I think it's a great fit, and I kind of like the fact that Ezekiel Elliott helped coach Weber when he was a freshman, learning the Ohio State way and everything, and now that Weber's coming back and giving Dobbins another year of it, and it's just the way those two are close, I think it's nothing going to be positive for Ohio State and positive for Weber in the future.
And if Weber teaches J.K. Dobbins how to do some actual pass blocking, maybe J.K. will be on the field a little bit more next year.
True. And that they're going to be working on that. So, all right, speaking of players returning or leaving, before we recorded today, this is Monday night, and I think this is going to be probably airing on a Thursday, but Jerome Baker has declared.
We said it on the Monday episode of the Sloopcast that Jerome Baker, by his own admission, didn't have the season that he wanted to have. I believe I read or heard a quote somewhere from Jerome Baker saying that he graded his season at a C-. So by his own admission, his season was a bit of a disappointment. He had flashes of brilliance this year, but he also disappeared at times. I mean, the linebackers as a whole, the linebackers as a crew, were the weak spot in the defense this year. I'm not putting all of that on Jerome Baker, but he was a part of the weakest crew. That being said, he is a custom-built linebacker from a NFL Combine perspective. Ohio State hasn't had a Combine linebacker like this since Ryan Shazier, and I'm saying that fully aware of how athletic Darren Lee is.
Chip, what about you?
No, I agree. I think Jerome Baker, he's going to test off the charts. Where he might run into issues at the Combine is when he, has his 15-minute interviews with teams, when they kind of grill him about, well, why didn't you play 17 as you did in 2016? And they're going to be kind of, checking to see if he's going to be, taking the blame for, whatever, like as Jared said, he gave himself a C-. Definitely has a bright future at the NFL, but there are some things that NFL teams will, definitely want to work with him on. He can't freelance in the NFL in much the same way as he did I guess you would say his sophomore season, but I wish him nothing but the best. It's not unexpected that he's going. I think if anything, it's going to add to what should be a very exciting spring football season for Ohio State fans like myself. Hearing about the competition at the linebacker position, as Jared said, linebacker was not necessarily point of the defense. So you're going to be seeing I would expect a lot of players getting their opportunity to seize that starting role. And I think a lot of players are going to be rotated in and out so they can get the best players on the field at that position.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised hearing that he was going to be declaring for the NFL. Like you guys were saying that he said that he graded himself a C minus or whatever. And I know Tony was saying during training camp that when he talked to Jerome Baker that one of the issues that from last year, he was playing out of, a step back or just the wrong formation, just out of position, but he had the athletic ability to make it up, and he was really, really good in 2016. This year, he seemed to take a step back. The whole linebacker core as a whole took a step back. Whether that was having a new linebacker coach, losing Luke Fickell, or what, but it is what it is. But I'm not surprised that he went in. But, I mean, when you look at somebody like Peppers from Michigan last year, still being able to get drafted in the first round, a lot of these NFL teams like the Browns, they put too much stock into the combine and not the whole package together. And he's going to, like you said, test off the charts. Do we know he won't be in Cleveland? Because they don't like the Buckeyes.
No. I mean, and why would they? It's definitely not working out for the Saints right now.
No, not at all. But let's go ahead, people like Clay Travis sit there and say because they're in SEC country that...
How dare you even speak his name out loud?
It's one of those moronic things that people say. They're full of Buckeyes, but yet because they're in the SEC country, that's why they're doing good. Whatever. All right.
If people... I assume a lot of our listeners are on Twitter. I assume a lot of your listeners are on Twitter. There's a beautiful feature in Twitter that allows you to mute words so that those muted words don't show up in your timeline. I have Clay Travis, not only his account muted, but I have the phrase Clay Travis muted. So if you send out a tweet talking about Clay Travis, I will not see it. I don't care what he has to say. He's nothing but a troll.
Oh, and it's what he did with Greg Schiano was it's embarrassing, and I don't understand how I don't understand how he still has a job with Fox, but
money.
It's insane. All right, before we talk about the Southern Bowl, it is officially announced today, which be on Monday, like I said earlier, that Alec Grinch, when we spoke about the exciting game for Michigan State and Washington State, he was the offensive or defensive coordinator for Washington State, former Mount Union guy, coming back to the great state of Ohio to be the co-defensive coordinator. Right now, it's believed to be with Schiano, but there's all kinds of different scenarios and rumors and innuendo and everything. Chip, what are your thoughts on having this 10th coach as another defensive coordinator?
Yeah, I think Alex Grinch, it's a welcome addition, a Mount Union guy, and say what you will about Mount Union, those, the guys that have played that program usually have gone on well to be in their own right. I know that a lot of people will probably think, okay, well, Washington State defensively, they didn't look good against Michigan State. Something to keep in mind is that when Alex Grinch, Washington State under Mike Leach, Washington State's defense was in the 100, category, of teams, and he made tremendous strides with that unit. So my my belief is that Alex Grinch was brought back this year. I'm not sure exactly what role he's going to have with Ohio State. More in line with the fact that Greg Schiano, eventually when he leaves, that you've got somebody who is very well positioned to take over the defensive coordinator position without missing a beat. You're talking about an Ohio guy, a Grove City resident. It's great to have another Ohio coach on the staff. I think he'll be a welcome addition to what's already a strong unit. I think just having another veteran voice in the room with Greg Schiano to make the Ohio State defense, you can't help but think that just makes Ohio State that much even more formidable defensively.
And what he was able to accomplish at Washington State, where Ohio State has been lacking the past few years, is that his defenses tend to get a lot of turnovers, which for all of the great things that Ohio State's defense has accomplished over the past few years, creating turnovers has not necessarily been their forte. Now, that was masked by the fact that Malik Hooker is a monster and created turnovers all by himself. But if you sort of take his greatness out of the equation, there were not a lot of turnovers created by the Ohio State defense in the past few years. So, you add this piece to the puzzle, and maybe you add yet another element to the defense to make it that much better.
Yeah, I think since 2014, they had 33 turnovers for the defense, which, let's see here, I think they were +7 on the year. 15, they were +3. Last year, they were +15. I mean, that all wasn't Hooker, but Hooker had a lot to deal with it. I mean, you're exactly right. And it's interesting as far as, is it just going to be another coordinator added to the defense? I mean, if Schiano stays, I mean, what is he going to be doing as far as the defense? I mean, because Schiano's been like the main guy on that. So if he stays, how do you guys think that's going to work out?
I think Schiano, I mean, don't forget, Schiano not only has been the defensive coordinator, I mean, he's a former NFL head coach. In terms of who's going to probably have the final say, I would presume that it would be Greg Schiano. But I also think one of the things that makes Greg Schiano a good coach is a willingness to listen to other coaches and find out how they did certain things. How did they possibly attack this kind of a formation or this kind of an offensive scheme? Alex Grinch, coming from the West Coast, where they had to play against a lot of predominantly passing offenses, doesn't matter if they're pro style, Mike Leach's air raid attack, first in things have worked in the past. And I think Greg Schiano will listen to Alex Grinch in terms of putting the best product on the field for Ohio State defensively.
And Ohio State's pretty well versed at this point in the co-coordinator game. They've had many co-coordinators. Schiano was the defensive coordinator this year, but he was the co-coordinator with Luke Fickell before that. And before that, Chris Ash was the co-coordinator with Luke Fickell. And they've had co-coordinators on the offensive side of the ball as well. Because ultimately, who ultimately decides this or that? Urban Meyer does. They're good at the co-coordinator game at this point. I was almost surprised that this year there was only one defensive coordinator. I was half expecting someone to get a promotion at some point. It never happened. It was just Greg Schiano running the defense. But like I said, it was to the point where during the previous offseason, I was expecting someone to get a promotion because it just, like I said, it feels old hat at this point. Yeah, there's 4 coordinators on the team. So what? It's Ohio State. It's what we do.
Yeah, my only thing, what's the specialty going to be? The secondary? You've got a NFL pedigree coach for the linebackers. You're not going to mess with Larry Johnson on that defensive line at all. Nope. So it's Combs is in the back or in the secondary, but he's also. Are you going to have him more on special teams because special teams was having such an issue, and put Grinch more towards the secondary and helping what looks like it's probably going to be maybe another rebuild because you got Ward coming out, and some of those guys, they just, like you mentioned on Sloopcast, Sheffield, he's athletic, but he's not being able to get turned around and make plays on the ball, and he's getting himself kind of burnt. And it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out if Schiano stays. And all indications right now are that that's going to happen, but it's still young in the NFL hiring season, so never know if he's going to bolt to the NFL, especially after the bad taste that was left in his mouth after the Tennessee incident.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be hard for him to find, a head coaching job in college football after that, because most of these universities operate on fear. and no one wants to risk that incident on their campus, as unjust as it was.
Yeah, and the thing that kills me about that is when he was hired for Ohio State, there was nothing. Then when the news came out, they, indicated him and the coach from UCLA, and everybody came out and said there was investigations done, and even the prosecutor in PA for the that whole situation came out and said these guys were not involved or anything and all that, and everything was kind of squashed. But yet Tennessee gets this big hair, thinking that, all right, he helped cover stuff up. But yet here are Baylor assistant coaches getting hired left and right all of a sudden, and everybody's like, oh, no, they were all good. So I don't know what the line is, where it's at, and how that's all playing out anymore. It just confuses me.
Rule of the mob. It's just, that's it. Who generates more pitchforks? What it boils down to. If you didn't have the guy whose name I already said I'm not going to mention anymore lead a charge on Twitter to make this happen, it wouldn't have happened. It was a non-issue. It was a non-issue when Ohio State hired him. It was a non-issue when Tennessee tried to hire him. It's just that someone decided to make it an issue.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous. I can understand if you sat there and said, hey, look, his overall record at Rutgers wasn't that great.
But it was Rutgers.
Right. So, I mean, he didn't have a winning record altogether at Rutgers, but he took him to how many bowl games? Sure, they were in the Big East, but it's Rutgers. Rutgers hasn't been, as far as for me, ever since I've been a fan of watching college football, Rutgers has just been
Rutgers,
Harvard, Princeton, Yale, those guys that were the beginning of college football. Sure, they've, smart people, lawyers and everything come out of the school, but they haven't caught up to the game of college football and really embraced it. I mean, their fans have, and they have a great, great tailgating area, and it's a shame for them, but it's, if you ever get a chance, I know you guys were kind of talking about college football stadiums. If you ever get a chance, go ahead and go out to Rutgers. It actually, I don't suggest driving through PA because you want to kill yourself afterwards because it's so long. But it is. It's like 5 or 6 hours driving through, and I was like, can we just be done with it already? But I had a great time there. People were walking around with 12 packs, just handing you beers, and just you were walking by, here, have some food. I had a lot of fun.
No, I've never been to the Rutgers campus. However, according to the Big Ten Network broadcast, it's the stadium's right underneath the Empire State Building. Is that the situation?
It sounds like it when they play that freaking air horn or whatever. I don't understand what that thing is, but yeah, it's nowhere near the Empire State Building, but it does sound like it.
There, you watch the broadcast and there's like establishing shots of Manhattan. Meanwhile, it's like 40 miles away.
Yeah, I think Staten Island's like 30 minutes away or something like that. So it's kind of like, I understand why the Big Ten went and got them in order to, based on before we started having
cable
all this,
buys.
Right, just, cutting the cable and everything. You're tapping into the New York market. It's huge, and it's benefited the Big Ten as a whole immensely.
Well, and it's helped Ohio State sort of make inroads into New Jersey and Maryland from a recruiting process. And I think it's a part of an overall strategy by the Big Ten. Cable buys are important, and probably the most important reason, but also it's a rebranding. the Big Ten no longer wants to be the Midwest Conference. They want to be the North Conference.
Yeah.
So you move east, you pick up Maryland, you pick up Rutgers, you add that to Penn State, who is already pretty far to the east. And not only that, you solidify Penn State, because after their big hubbub, there were, angry message board people, but those can sometimes bleed into real life, as far as people saying, well, the Big Ten didn't support us in this, maybe we should leave the Big Ten. But like I said, you push east, you pick up 3 schools in the east, if you count Penn State, and you can start to rebrand yourself as not the Midwest Conference, but the Northern Conference.
Which, I think I've seen somebody say the last time the North has won the national title, it's been Ohio State twice.
Speaking of the national title.
Go ahead.
Well, it's already kicked off, and I'd like to go watch it. So I'm going to say Alabama 35, Georgia 16.
All right. Well,
I want to get going, man. I want to go and savor the last college football game of the season.
All right. Well, you go ahead and you enjoy that game, because I'm going to watch Cavs basketball here in a little while.
I didn't say I'm going to necessarily enjoy it. I just want to watch it because it's a long time for those of us that don't really care about baseball. 162 games of the year.
I care about all sports.
It's a long time until
I care about all sports.
Well, for some of us, yeah, like college football is pretty much our only sustenance. So I just kind of look at it like this is, until spring football kicks off for Ohio State, this is kind of a long oasis for me. So want to get going on watching the national championship game. I think Alabama is going to just throttle Georgia. Georgia, I know that they're, it was a very impressive comeback win against Oklahoma, and say what you will about, the fairness of, the teams that were in the playoff. I just think Alabama, they're going to make Georgia one-dimensional. They're going to just kind of, shut down that running game. And I just think Alabama is going to take it 35-16. So.
Jared, did you have anybody on that?
No. I really don't. I think Bama will win. I want Georgia to win. That's all I got.
Yeah, it's not that I'm like boycotting a game or anything. It doesn't have any appeal to me, being 2 teams from the same conference being in the national championship. And I don't think that Alabama deserved to be in the playoffs. I never said, and if people have listened to me on other shows, never said that I thought Ohio State deserved to be in there. But I will tell you that a 1-loss Wisconsin or a undefeated UCF should have had a shot in, getting in there. And just being old school, when if you lose your last week, especially when you have a FCS school the week before and you go and lose, you should be automatically booted out. It's ridiculous, and the whole strength of schedule thing had an issue with me on that. So that it is what it is. But all right, so before we go, Chip, where can people find you?
I can be found on Twitter at Chip Minnich. I can be found on Hazen Cannon as well as at Athlon Sports.
Jared, you want to tell the fine folks that possibly don't know about your show?
Yeah, we do an episode. We do a podcast called the Buckeye Sloopcast, which, as a couple fine people pointed out on the Ozone message boards today, is not about the Ohio State sailing team. It is in fact about Buckeye football mostly. We do basketball, we do recruiting, we do music sometimes too, just for the fun of it. We joined the Ozone Radio Network just this week. We're incredibly excited about that. We rolled independent for 3 full seasons, and we're proud of the audience that we were able to scrape together without a platform to stand on, and just through social media and word of mouth. And we were very proud of what we were able to do, but we were fearing that we were, reaching our limitations as far as what we could do with that. And then Shannon reached out to us and said, we're trying to build an entire network here, and we're trying to branch out and see if we could bring some more people in and I have read the Ozone since I got the internet. The website goes back to 1996, which is about the beginning of the web. And
thank you, El Gore.
It's just been a part of my life. It's a website I have visited multiple times a week for like 2 decades. And when Shannon reached out to us, I couldn't say no. So we're very happy to be a part of the Ozone, to be a part of the Ozone Radio Network. And I honestly have had the Ozone up most day, just staring at the logo I created being on the website and being a little taken aback by it, because when Kyle and I released our very first episode over 3 years ago, we in that first week we got 27 downloads, and to have grown something from nothing is, and then to be validated by Shannon and the guys over at the Ozone, and for Tony Gerdeman to post our stuff and retweet it. I'm lost for words. So I'm incredibly thankful. We release every single Monday, and we also do Thursday episodes during the season. You can find us on Twitter at Sloopcast. And of course, you can find us right there on the homepage of theozone.net.
It's great to have you.
I appreciate that.